In the early 1950s, the BBC used to regularly broadcast a radio show about gardening, and it consisted of a reverend and a very posh lady. Now, in those days, the BBC was very upper class, and everyone spoke very posh. And what happened is something was said that had an unexpected response, because even though the BBC was very upper class, the majority of people listening in were very working class, and they could see the funny side of what was said. But I know this to be possibly true because I've heard it from 3 separate sources who actually heard it. So here we go. Now, prior to the show, the Reverend had impaled his finger on a rose thorn. And the first things that was said on the show was, the lady said, "Reverend, how's your prick?" To which the reply was, "Oh, it's still throbbing." Good evening and welcome to another exciting show.
I'm so glad you didn't tell me about it earlier. It would spoiled it. Genius.
Well, that is actually, I've heard that from 3 separate sources. So I think it's true. It went out live.
Must be true.
And people were absolutely falling on the floor. And this was the early 50s, apparently, long before I was born. And people were falling on the floor with laughter because they couldn't. But they're very powerful seeing those days. And they saw it in a completely different way. I didn't know what people were laughing.
That was good. It was good.
Well, anyway, this evening, our guest is Chris DeGar. Hello, Chris.
Hello, mate. Good
and we've also got 2 guest stars as well, Eric and Ernie.
Yes.
We'll introduce them a bit later. They're in the green room at the moment.
Yeah,
literally.
And we've got Barclay as well, who is also in the room at the moment, but may make an appearance. Barks, are you?
Barclay?
Is he gonna come on? Come on then.
He's a famous musician, Barclay James Jarvis, wasn't it?
Oh God!
Wow. Where is it? It was Barclay. Hang on, he's gone.
No, he's got a bit growly, so we won't pick him up.
Oh dear, we can't do that.
He's in a funny mood tonight, mate.
Could it be like a kind of showbiz thing? You know, he's been a sort of drama.
Yeah, can't wait to say hello, mate. But he's on a bone, so it might be that, mate. He probably thinks I'm going to try and steal his bone. So we'll leave him to it. He'll just make a racket in the background.
Well, we've actually had a huge queue of people in chat before, about half hour before we started.
It's brilliant, isn't it, mate?
It's absolutely incredible, the amount of people in chat. And we got from Josh Blackburn, we've got some very nice sayings here. It says, "Hi, Chris, I've got a quote for you from a man I have no time for, but a broken clock is right twice a day." That's correct, yes. "There is no such thing as public," this is a brilliant one. "There's no such thing as public opinion. There is only published opinion." And that's Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
For being a bastard, he said some incredible things, didn't he?
Oh, he did, mate. But then he was very much in the know, wasn't he? He was, he wasn't a commoner.
Correct. That's right. And because he was a Freemason, wasn't he, as well, and a Druid.
Wrong. All sorts of wrong.
Yeah, and then we've got Bob Hollyoaks. Sorry, mate, you were beaten again this week. You were beaten by Josh Blackburn. Came at 1:47 this afternoon, and you got on at 3:19 this afternoon. So that's keenness, isn't it?
Wow.
And that's life, but not as we know it. So
this is William.
Hello, William.
Is on the chat a lot on the Richie Allen show, and William has come across to say hello. So appreciate that.
Hello, William.
Good to see you.
Thanks for subscribing. But if that means that you've got a complaint called sub, I think you can get tablets for it, so you'll be all right there. Actually, so you're all right there. Now we got here. Sorry, I go. Yeah, we got ancient Egyptian proverb: "The best and shortest road towards knowledge of truth is nature."
Most certainly.
And there's an ancient Chinese proverb. I think it's Fuchsia that said, "Woman that cooks potatoes and peas in same pot Very unhygienic.
Got to think about that. Wise
words. That one. Yes, yes.
You're in a peculiar mood, aren't you?
I know. Is she a plant, Eric?
He's referring to the lady, I think, that the rather alluring lady that you portrayed on the
Oh,
advert.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's just a lady I found in my garden. I said, "Do you mind posing?" She said, "Yes, certainly." I said, "Well, you know, she's not into." Yes.
What else is in your
believe that? You believe anything? Now, no, she's busy pulling up her panties. Good evening, Chris. Looking forward to the show. Oh yes, so are we. We're waiting for someone to come on. Waiting to see Eric and Ernie.
Mate, this is it. This is as good as it gets, I think, tonight.
And we've got here Kat. Hello, Kat. Hello, everyone. Hope all are well. Yes, that's it. And we've got Louise. Hello, Louise. And in fact, she could stand on a roof and sort of do semaphore to you, couldn't she? Because you're so close.
Not that far, mate. Just up the road. Yeah, just up the road.
Have you met him yet? Have you met? Now, it says here.
Hello, Ralph.
Hello, Ralph. We got the violinist. Greetings.
Oh my word, that's mate. That's Faisal. That's Faisal from Rich Allen as well. Hello, Faisal. What a treat.
There's a lot of violinists apparently in my local council. They're closet violinists because when you talk to people about the council, they say, "Oh, they're on the fiddle." So I assume they're violinists.
Yeah, they're
very innocent, Yeah. And we got here, and he was in the Z Club too. Yes, that's Winston Churchill. Yes, he certainly was a word we can't mention on YouTube.
He most certainly was, Kat. Yeah.
Yes. And we will screw money out of them on the beaches and we'll con them. Right. Ladies' underwear, Winnie of the Churchill. Hi, all. That's Hatchie.
Hi, Hatchie.
Yes. The man that actually met Eisenhower while sitting on the toilet. That's the sort of person he was. Yes. Did you know that? And he used to actually dictate stuff to his secretary while he's in the bath.
He also used to say things that he knew would sound outrageous, like in a hotel foyer he would say to his secretary, "And I shall need 3 women tonight," which he meant typists, but he would say it to try and shock people in the hotel.
Doesn't surprise me. Surprise me at all. And it's just evening, guys. Love from Truth Seekers Northeast. Hello, Mo.
Back at you, Mo.
By the way, would you like to come on again, kicking and screaming? And oh yes, I've got to contact Dave. I contacted him. He's coming on the show soon. He doesn't know it though yet.
Is that allegedly, Dave?
Allegedly, Dave. No, not allegedly, Dave. The other.
Not allegedly, Dave. No, right.
Unallegedly, Dave. It is indeed. Evening, guys. Yes, it's Faisal, the violinist. Got Aunt Sally.
Hello, Aunt Sally.
Yes, and by the way, I might be popping into Miles on Wednesday, so if you're around, I'll see you there. And here we go. And we got here. Good evening. Oh yes, we're saying I've already said good evening. Ancient Ruby. Hello, Ruby. And Hatchie. Oh, here we go. We always said hello. And then we've got. Oh dear, I'm in my pajamas.
Oh, we've reached. You're not live tonight, then, isn't it, Moo? I don't think we're quite ready for that yet.
Oh, crumbs! Yes, I'm wearing some very fetching trousers at the moment.
You look very smart tonight, mate. I made that comment when I first saw you. You look incredibly smart. And
thank you very much. You look very smart. And sort of, no, it's
yeah.
I thought I look a fart smeller tonight. Sorry, I mean smart fella tonight, because I've got yourself, who's Chris the gardener,
always impeccably turned out. Yeah,
that's right.
Gardening clothes.
We've got Eric and Ernie as well.
Eric and Ernie.
Do you wonder who Eric and Ernie is? Would you ever like to meet Eric and Ernie?
I think you should bring them on, Chris. I think.
There's Ernie, and that is what I do as it's gardening. You see. I buy. Sorry, that's not a urine sample. I assure you that it is actually.
That's just a bit of dirt.
Water's got a bit. I changed the water, but the surrey goes a bit naff on the outside. But what I do, I save the root of the celery because I'm a tight-fisted git, and I stick it in water. And in about a week or two, you get this. And you can either give it as a bouquet to, to somebody you love. It saves this cold weather, it saves taking a shortcut through the cemetery, doesn't it, to give a bouquet? Or you taste this. It's delicious because it's the leafy bits of celery, which are apparently the good bits, and it's organic now. And the water is actually, the reason it is that colour is, no, I haven't wee-weed in it. It's banana skins that I leave in some water for about a week, take them out, put them in the compost bin, and that has got all the nutrition, and that like a plant feed, and it's natural. So that's what it is. This is
potassium, isn't it, Chris?
Potassium, yes, right. And this is another one that was started slightly. That was about a week or so ago. And
is that in soil or in water, mate?
That's all in water.
That's in water still, is it?
And it's too cold to put in soil this weather. And I'm actually wondering whether to keep them in water. They seem to be growing all right, don't they?
Aquaponics, mate, hydroponics, whatever you want to call it. Water can be used as a medium to grow in. So,
what? Barkley agrees. He agrees.
That's actually Gizmo barking because he's about to get his treat. Steroid. Yeah, he's had to go on steroids, mate. His heart's got really big and it's pressing against his trachea. No, mate. It's okay, but the steroids are helping to reduce the size of his heart, and I mean, we know it's not helpful him being on steroids, but he's 12, mate.
He's getting on a bit, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a good age. We've got a couple that are up to a good age. He's 12 and Wiz, the other old one, she's 15. So, but he's barking because he's just had a bit of ham. So, but anyway, apologies for the interruption.
That's all right. And now we was talking the other week about the way problems actually build is character building.
Of course they do, mate. Yeah.
And most of the people that's had the most damaging or terrible experiences in life, it has refined their character. It has built their character up. So I think that what happened in our past and things like that, I think you can look at it two ways. You can say, oh, it was terrible, blah, 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 blah. Or you could say it was character building.
Absolutely, mate. You turn a negative into a positive. Everything that happens to you is a lesson, mate. That's what it is. And there's no surefire way, mate. If you want to be hit by a big wave of disappointment, then start gardening and growing. Because trust me, to start with, you'll get that. You'll get setbacks and things that'll knock you off your feet and question sometimes whether you wanted to keep doing it. But it's like anything, mate. If you put into something, the rewards, they're always, spot on, Louise.
That's it. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Yeah,
and as I've always said, a calm sea never made a good captain.
No, true again, mate.
That's it. I mean, when you look at these people in governments and these people, I mean, one of the particular things that I've been looking into recently is local councils. And my local council, I thought it was very strange that the top honcho is put down as an executive. And I thought if you were a civil servant, you were an officer.
Yeah.
So how comes he's an executive? And I found out the reason why.
Go on.
And I keep it very quiet. My local council has a business in which they for tenants and things, and he is the executive of it. So I know that. Hey, we've gone dark. Hey, it's early this week, isn't it?
Hey, yeah, there you are.
Hey, that's it. But I know that his salary, I think it's £147,000 a year.
Yeah, nice.
And I don't know. I mean, he's not running the business, and that's off the council. That's what we pay him. Yeah. And I don't know what he earns off the company, but I very much doubt whether he's doing it for the benefit of his health.
No, he won't be doing it for the love of it, will he?
And it's a leasing company.
Chris, you know that all the local councils are all signed up to the Agenda 2030 nonsense anyway. Their loyalty isn't even to the local borough anymore now. They are. I think every single one in the UK is signed up, mate. I don't think there's one that isn't. If anybody knows differently, tell me. But I think they're all signed up to it, and as such, their loyalties are no longer to the local borough. They are now to this ridiculous manifesto that I think pretty much most countries in the world now are almost sort of duty bound to, and it's going to bring nothing but pain if they ever get anywhere with it. And this is again, this is why we've got to take responsibility for ourselves, mate, and stop relying on a local authority or a lorry or anything. If we can't become self-reliant and teach ourselves the skills to survive without lorries running stuff everywhere, then we're screwed, mate.
I 100% agree with you there, Chris, because also it's true what Louise has said. All councils, police, etc. are registered corporations. They take the public purse, but they run by uniform commercial code, not ethics and morality. Don't stress they will be bankrupt soon. Well, I was actually, they've got about as much right to send council. It's not council tax, it's council contract. They've got as much right to send a contract out to you every, I think it's March or April, you get it through the post.
Yeah.
As the local supermarket has for goods that you haven't bought. Yeah. And what you're actually paying for is their pensions, because Gordon Brown sold all the pensions off. So that's why a very small percentage of what you pay goes to the police and anything else. The main percentage goes onto their pensions. It's a complete and utter scam, and it goes up every year.
Well, Chris, my wife worked in a local authority for 17 years before we met, and she got out because she just couldn't handle it anymore. She really couldn't. But her take on it was that the majority of the people that were there would not survive in a real job. Like the vast majority of them, she said, were complete muppets and would not last 2 minutes in a proper job. She said the blokes were Walter Mitties, and a lot of the women just up their own backsides, mate. I mean, not all.
Not all, but I mean, they're like little empire builders. That's the real thing. They've got to be seen to be doing, but don't exactly do anything. And I actually got the, there's a problem next door to me with this fence. What's happened?
The ongoing fence saga.
The ongoing fence. What's happened is a building developer has built some houses at a higher level. That's about 10 or 15 foot higher. And they put 3 fences up. So her garden looks like Alcatraz,
Oh, it's a beautiful piece of art, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah, a marvelous bit of art there, you see. So I've done drawings and sent them to show that how they could correct the problem. And they've come back with the most impractical idea ever. And that is the middle fence, just putting a facing on it, which is going to make bugger all difference. So I sent to the chief honcho, the local council, and also it's a health and safety problem, but the local council are not responsible for the health and safety of that for some unknown reason. So I asked him, the head honcho, to confirm that they're not responsible, and then I'll send to the MP and say, well, if the HSE is not responsible, the local council not responsible, who is?
Right.
For health and safety.
Sorry, I thought you were backing off for a bit off of that. I thought you were gonna.
Well, I was backing up until I got the answer via email. I sent a letter, and he sent an email to me. To this, excuse my language, arsehole, and he said the facing. I've heard that the facing will be put on the middle fence, which will make it much more pleasant. Full stop. He hasn't looked at my drawings. He hasn't done anything like
far too much work.
I'm putting a letter together and saying, before this goes onto social media, it is wrong to mock the afflicted, but could you please confirm that the reply was not written by somebody with learning difficulties, full stop. I'm taking it. Yeah, because to me, that is an answer that someone with learning difficulties would respond using.
Yeah.
I mean, taking the mick.
They'd probably come out with something a bit more intelligent than that, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, they're just sort of what they do. It's all PR. They just fob you off, just, you know. And
I'll give you the runaround. Just hope that eventually you'll give up.
Well, that's right. And I looked at they've got loads of money they're slushing around with. My local council is one of the richest, and I looked at what they give money to. And now, remember, I'm in Hertfordshire. Okay,
I'm not going to be shocked by this.
And I will put it on. And they've given money to a Masonic lodge in Bristol. It's actually on the list of things because it was something to do with charity in Bristol.
Yeah. Why not?
Why is that money going to local people?
Because it's sort of not what it's about, mate, is it? You know that.
No. So interesting. So I might actually show people. I might load it up and show what my local council are up to. Mind you, I've got to be very careful because I think they'll send the mafia out after me if they.
You got mafia down there in is it Chesham?
Cheshunt, not Chesham.
Cheshunt. Oh, where Tesco's are.
That's right. Yeah, sunny Tesco's. We have actually, seriously, there's a lot of Sicilians, the second and third generation from World War II. They came over and they were in a POW camp.
Right.
And they stayed here when the war ended. And the mafia is apparently very strong around here because there are a lot of people of Italian descent or Sicilian descent.
Careful what we say.
That's right. Yes. So I might wake up with a horse's head in the bottom of the bed or something like that. You know, you never know. But this is an interesting one from Louise. Now it says here. Now it says just return all contracts, council otherwise, return to sender, unopened and recorded delivery, and write no wish to contract on the front. We consent to the contract if we ignore them. Sorry, we consent to the contract if we.
I think what she means is that we only consent when we don't ignore them. See, I'd be up for that, but I don't think my wife would. That's the thing. You see, it's I never had a TV license until I got with my wife. Never had one before. But you know, this is the thing. When you're in a partnership, mate, it's not all about your way. It's got to be, you know, it's got to be. Otherwise, it's not an equal relationship. So it's got to be a bit of both. You know, we do plenty of things my way.
I think that's it. And I think the longer you're on your own, the more hard it is to be in a relationship because you can't help it. You just get into your own ways.
You do. You get very set in your ways, mate. I was single for a good 10 years, you know, at one point, and you do. It's easy to get set in your ways.
That's right. Go when you want and come back when you want and do what you want. And Stewie has said, "Hello, Stewie. I'd like to see your drawings, Chris."
I'm sure you would, Stewie. Which ones, Stewie? The ones that he does when he's bored, or the professional ones?
I'll put up on the screen. Yes, that's right. I'll put them up on the screen.
Careful what you wish for.
Yes, and what we got? Kat has said, but is the mafia really Sicilian? That's an interesting one. I saw in JFK to 9/11. Everything is a rich man's trick. The mafia is the usual crew.
They 100% agree linked, aren't they? They work with the CIA, and they probably work with the security services in Europe as well, in Italy and other places where they're prevalent. Yeah, they're definitely. There's more to that than we know. We'll know.
I'm going to be very careful where I say this, though, and I think that what's this now? The mafia is a psyops, and you said this. There is many mafias. I agree with you.
Yeah, totally. The government are a mafia,
right? But, you know, try and explain something in shorthand. Okay, when I say shorthand, to avoid the censors. Now to stop the klaxons at YouTube HQ setting off. Okay, The people we're not allowed to criticise originate in Ukraine.
Khazaria.
Yes. And they came over, and not all of them, there's only the psychopath sections of them which are harmful. The rest are harmless. And they settled in two major places in Europe. One is Switzerland, and the other one is Sicily.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and if they've looked at the DNA of the Swiss, and it's different to the rest of the Europeans, and it comes from that where I said.
And they have been very isolated, Switzerland, haven't they?
That's right. And what is it the head of? Banks.
Yeah.
And where did the protocols of come from? In 1907 or before then? Switzerland. Right. And then the mafia is very big in Sicily. And they've looked into the DNA of the Sicilians, who are very different to the Italians, and they found out where they originate from as well, the same place as the Swiss originate from, and where we said at the beginning of this. So that might open a few eyes. I'm not being anti-septic or anything like that.
No, we're just talking about movements of groups of people, aren't we, mate? Like we've said it 100 times on here before, but it's always the same, isn't it? Our only beef is with people that are doing bad things. I've got no problem with normal people in any country in the world that are just peacefully living their lives and don't want no beef. That, you know, I think we get pulled into traps sometimes, mate, because we talk about these divisions and these things like they're important, like they mean something, but they don't. There's simply two groups of people in this world, good and bad, and that's what we need to remember, is that, you know, and the majority are good, and unfortunately we're very good at getting trodden on and walked over and letting people lead us down, you know, sort of like, you know, leading us down paths that ultimately do us a lot of harm. The thing we need to do is put all this crap down and stop focusing on any of these differences and just focus on what unites us all and what we can do to stop this enslavement, which is it's a worldwide thing, and there is nowhere in the world you can go where you're safe, not where you're going to get left alone.
I agree with you, and I mean, I'll give you an example. There's two examples. I actually said this in a answer to comment, not on YouTube but on BitChute, and there's two areas that I think have been taken over. One has been taken over as a psyops, and the other one was dreamt up as a sort of psyop, and that is Notting Hill Carnival and Gay Pride. Now, I worked in Longacre in London, and this was in the 1990s. And you remember there was a King's Cross fire, I think, in the late 80s.
Yes, there was. Yeah.
Well, what happened, and I think it's long enough time now, is they had to update all 96 stations with better fire regulations, because I think I can get away with saying it. There were sprinklers, you know, sprinkler systems, the way they work. There's a sprinkler head. When it gets a certain temperature, I think there's a wax there that melts, and the sprinkler goes and spurts water. Now, what happened with the King's Cross fire is that the government had cut back a lot. And remember, we've got loads and loads of Victorian sewage systems where the bricks are and the mortar is crumbling. They're not repaired, they're just about sent out, and of course they're seeping sewage through, and there are certain areas in this underground where they used to have pumps to pump the soil water out. Well, due to cutbacks, what the official story is, it was a wooden escalator, someone dropped a cigarette and it caused a fire.
That's as I've always understood it, mate.
Right. Now, when the people went to survey King's Cross, the question was, why didn't the sprinklers go off? And the real reason why it didn't go off is because there was a fireball caused by a build-up of methane. And that's the real reason why they banned smoking down the tube. It wasn't to do with public health. It was the possibility of methane.
Of another, yeah.
Never before happened before because it was well maintained. That is due to cutbacks.
Yeah.
And of course, sadly, vaporized the people, a bit like a nuclear blast in many ways, on the spot. So where there was people, there's often just outlines.
Yeah.
So
they're never really a good idea. And it's like you know, dredging the rivers, isn't it, in the UK? I mean, they claim cutbacks, don't they? I don't know. Sometimes that they also claim environmental damage. But the fact is, mate, if we don't dredge rivers, we're going to end up with flooded land next to them. Rivers have always been dredged and maintained. That's what we've always done. You've got to try and do it in a way in balance with nature as best you can. But if you don't dredge your rivers, mate, you're going to end up with flooded land. And the fact that so many new builds are built on floodplains as well.
Oh yes, yeah. that's right.
They
and
do
this
that
is
a lot
why
around here, mate.
so much flooding. This is the thing. Oh, well, Norfolk. I mean, you're at sea level.
No, mate. This is
some of it,
mate. A tiny little bit of it. It is literally,
really?
we are right on the edge of the fens. Everybody thinks Norfolk is the fens, but the bit I live in it's where the village I live in is half fen, half not fen. So half of my village is fens and half of it isn't. But Norfolk, no, it is literally a tiny little sliver of Norfolk on the west side, mate, that is part of the fens. Lincolnshire, Cambridgeshire, that's your primary fenland. There are bits of Norfolk that are wetlands, but they're still allowed to flood. So there's like out in Waveney, it's this time of year, it's just completely flooded. You can't get anywhere around there. But that's always been like that. That's just wetland. It's not drained fenland. So you know, there is a bit of Norfolk that's in the fens. You're right, mate. But the majority of Norfolk is nothing like the fens. It's rolling hills, and you know, it's.
Oh yes, it's a little bit hilly in places, isn't it? Not
there's no peaks or nothing. No, it's just rolling. I mean, that's kind of what it like. Where I live, you're kind of coming up from where I live now. The sea used to come up to the bottom of my road years ago. It doesn't anymore. It's now about a mile and a half away. But so you're just kind of starting to lift up here. But if the further you go towards Cromer, and it's really hilly, mate. There's a big glacial deposit in Cromer called Cromer Ridge, and there's a lot of hills and that around there. So yeah, it is a bit of a misconception. Everybody thinks Norfolk is the fens, but it's not really, mate.
If I lived in Norfolk, I'd actually call my house In Chance, because then people say it's Norfolk In Chance. Sorry, yeah.
No, not at all. It's like the folk the song.
But on with my story. So this project I was working on, it was actually in Longacre, and we actually worked in the building where Yogi Bear, not Hello Boo Boo, Yogi Bear, but the Yogi Bear, he actually did the first television transmission from there, and I probably worked in the same level that he did, at the same office that he did, and there's like a little plaque as you walked in. This is where Yogi Bear, I think it's in the 1920s, did the first television broadcast. But anyway, it was such a high pressure project because it's a hell of a lot of redesigning you had to do. And unfortunately, there were some stations that were quite nice, tube stations that were built out just on the edge of London in the 1930s. And they had to, it's awful that to knock parts of it down just to accommodate this new fire regs. Anyway, on with the story. I went in on one Saturday. I used to work on Saturday mornings. And the way I used to get there, I used to go around the Circle Line from Liverpool Street to Embankment and then walk up from there. And the reason why is, don't tell anybody, it's between you and I suffer from claustrophobia down tubes. And I never used to, but I got trapped down there in full rush hour when the lights went out for 2 hours. And from that time ever onwards, I couldn't face it. Because you imagine being pitch black, your head, you can't move, you can't see anything, and your head is really headachy because the oxygen levels are going down.
Well, you're breathing in a lot of pollution down there as well, mate. The air in the tube is probably about 20 times as more polluted, I think, than what it is above ground in London.
Yeah, it was a power cut, and some of the tubes just ground to a halt, and the air got so bad, people were almost at the point of smashing the windows.
Yeah.
Almost, and then the lights came back on, and then we just went very slowly into the station. And when the doors opened, people were falling out, you know.
I was going to say.
And from that time, I couldn't handle it. I just couldn't handle it. I can probably travel on it, not on rush hour, but in the rush hour, no, it screwed me up. So anyway, on with the story. I came out now of work about lunchtime, and I didn't know that day it was Gay Pride. So I was, you know, thought, get home. And
you say you didn't know.
I didn't know. Honestly, I didn't know. And the whole of Embankment station, you couldn't get near it. So I thought, balls. So I decided to walk to the next station, which they're quite close together along the Embankment. And as I was walking along the road, it was a freak show. That's the only way I could describe it. It was horrendous. And I worked with a lady. She was really attractive. She was actually a lesbian, and she lived with her girlfriend. And I really fancied her, but we were good friends, actually. We got on quite well. And anyway, I couldn't believe it, what I was seeing. And there was children there. And when I got in on Monday, I started talking to her about this, and she was totally against it. And there's a lot of gay people that are against.
A lot of gay people are, mate. Yeah, it doesn't.
And there was somebody in chat I was talking to about this. And to me, what they're doing, they're getting minority groups and they're turning it into like a kind of, how can I explain it? I think it's meant to disgust people.
I don't know what, mate. I think a lot of it, they're trying to normalise a lot of perverted behaviour for a start. I think that's part of what it is.
Well, no, they're perverting it more, because what people do behind closed doors between consenting adults, it's up to them. If they're a nice person,
of course it is. We don't care.
What they're doing, they're trying to pervert things to a level that it's actually an insult to people like, just ordinary, respectable gay people. That's what they're doing. They're perverting it.
I don't see that there's, I feel that gay people have got equal rights. I think now. I feel like gay people are accepted in society. You get the odd idiot, but you'll always get the odd idiot. That can't be helped. But I don't feel like there's any outward sort of bigotry or hatred towards gay people that I'm aware of. Live and let live. I know plenty of people that are gay. It's not even relevant. The point I'm making is, I think that a lot of this now, like you say, whatever it is, there's an agenda behind it, and it's not an agenda that's got a good motive. It seems to me like I don't know what they're trying to do with it, mate. I mean, with the sort of the transgender kind of, the way of thinking, I've got to be careful what I say, I've got to remember I'm on YouTube here, but the way of thinking, the train of thought that seems to be going with all this craziness in terms of 96 genders and all this, it's very confusing, I'm sure, for children, and it's not helpful. And I think the key thing is just let kids be kids. I wasn't really aware. I mean, we talked about our erections when we were 8-9 years old and things like that amongst the boys, but sexuality, mate, I don't think I even thought about that until I was probably 11-12 years old and starting to hit puberty. And that's kind of how it should be. Kids
you sort of suddenly find that girls are much more interesting than
and all that confusing feeling that comes with it, and all that awkwardness and all that. Well, such a joy. But kids should be allowed to go through that, because that's part of growing up. And nobody told me about gays or lesbians when I was 4 years old, and I didn't grow up hating them. So that kind of worked out. When I was curious, I probably asked a question and got an answer. And that's how it should be. Let kids be kids.
Larry Grayson, I used to watch him. I thought he was a fantastic entertainer, and it didn't really, to me, it didn't really matter whether he was gay or not. It just, he was a good entertainer. He was really bloody good, but he's what I call a respectable person, because his private life was his private life, and he was a very good entertainer, excellent entertainer. And I think that this is the thing. He didn't flaunt things off stage. He didn't flaunt his sexuality. He's just, that was Larry. That was Larry Grayson, and he had good friends, and that's it. And I think that the more I hear about him, I mean, he was another one, a bit like Oliver Reed. Sorry, they're totally different characters. What I mean is, he was a secret helper, and if there's anybody in trouble, they would get a donation when they didn't know where it was from, and he kept quiet about it, not to embarrass them. And similar happened with Oliver Reed, where there was a woman that couldn't pay a mortgage or anything like that, and suddenly she found a mortgage paid, and he wouldn't admit it. And she asked whether it was him, and he just told her to pay off and walked away. But she reckons it was him. And Larry Larry Grayson was apparently similar. If there's anybody having tough times in the village where he came from, they wouldn't go through tough times. He would be the benefactor, but he would not admit it. And if they asked him, no, and that sort of thing. And that, to me, is a true kind person.
That's
how it should be.
real society, though, isn't it? That's really what we need more of. If we did more of that, we wouldn't need government. We don't need government, but we would.
No.
There wouldn't be an excuse for government if we looked after each other. There wouldn't be an excuse for government. It would be redundant, because if we all did the right thing and helped out the people that were less able around us, and tried to look after our community a little bit better, there'd be no pretense for a need for government.
Well, why can't we have civic pride or community pride, showing how you be peaceful and kind to people?
That would be more my bag.
But what gets me is like Notting Hill. Now, the person who ever thought that up was probably a pretty good idea, and it used to go on, I think, in the 60s and 70s. Now, what's happened, it's been commercialized, and they're showing, twerking and things like that. Well, I know people who are second and third generation from the Caribbean who are absolutely disgusted in it. And they said, this does not represent people from the Caribbean. This is some modern crap that they're putting in.
This is so multifaceted, isn't it, though, Chris? This is coming in not just at Notting Hill and not just at Pride, but this is everywhere now. This is you look at some of the entertainment that's designed for children that they watch. It's highly suggestive, and it's not even a new thing, mate. Disney's been doing it for 50, 60 years, mate. We know that the CIA helped him to buy that land in Florida to create Disney World. So, it's everything's tainted these days, mate.
It's corrupted, and something that's good, it seems to be tainted, doesn't it? That's the thing.
Can I bring us back round to where we're supposed to be tonight, mate? Because we're talking about things tainted, and one thing that isn't, mate, is nature. Mother Nature, there's still plenty of that around, mate, and that's real reality, if you like, and getting involved with that and interacting with that, and I mean, that to me is where we need to bring ourselves back to. And I know that's difficult for people that live in cities and things like that. But like I said to you last time, we talked about growing food and things, mate. There's still things you can do. There's windowsills and balconies and community garden projects, and old people with gardens that can't look after them and might benefit from you giving them a bit of help in their garden a couple of hours a week, and them giving you a little bit of land where you can grow some veggies. And I really feel passionately, mate, that we're losing the skills that we're going to need to survive. And you look at what's going on, mate, now. I mean, mate, I weren't around for the start of the Second World War, and I don't think you were either, quite, were you?
No, I definitely wasn't. Although I looked that age, but I sure you wasn't,
Mate, my point quickly was going to be that prior to that, you had the Munich crisis, didn't you? And
yes.
That was where most people in that period of time were anxious about a war starting. And when the war actually started, it happened so quickly in September 1939 that most people hadn't really seen what was happening and hadn't seen the chess pieces moving prior to it. So it was a bit of a shock. there was more panic in 38 with the Munich crisis than there was actually in 39 when the war started. And my point is, mate, you look at what's going on around the world today. There are powder kegs everywhere, mate. Literally, you look at, I mean, it's insane that the news that has happened so far in this very short year, the 2 weeks of it that we've had so far, it's insane, mate. The insanity is ramping up. Things are going to get crazy, I think, if not this year, certainly by 2025, mate. They've got an agenda to complete in 5 years, 6 years time. So we've already seen how quickly they can steamroll things in the last 4 years of nonsense. And I can't believe it's nearly 4 years since that started as well, mate.
It seems like 18 months to 2 years. It doesn't
seem like 4 years, does it? But my point,
it's the fastest 4 years I think has ever passed in my life.
Well, because of, you think of all the craziness that we've been through. I mean, I made this point, you know, on Richie's show just before Christmas when I spoke on a phone in about PTSD. And how many people, I mean, you know, I had a wobble in the summer, mate. I really did. I wasn't good. And I think a lot of that was, it was like a settling of everything that had happened in the 3.5 years prior. The trauma, mate, we've been through trauma, and those of us that saw it differently will feel that trauma because, you know, we perhaps, you know, had something quite rightly to be scared of. We saw where people were just like lemmings walking off a cliff, mate, following each other, doing things that if you'd have sat them down on their own and got them to think rationally, they might not have done. But because it's that group think, isn't it, that herd mentality. And
this is what I find terrifying. And you know, because I've often looked back, you know, you look back in history and you think, well, how did Mao get away with genociding almost 1 billion people?
He didn't
do it alone. It must have been compliance with a group that helped him. Same as Stalin.
Yeah, Goebbels said, just repeat a lie often enough and people, the bigger the lie, the better, and people will believe it. He said, you know, do that. And that's what we've seen, mate. We've seen mass formation psychosis, I think they were calling it, weren't they? We've seen it now, mate. We've seen how, and it's scary, I think, because you think, well, they've only got to flip it or twist it and do it with something else. But mate, my point is, we need to be prepared. We need to talk about what I think is more important now than talking about the problems is the solutions, mate, and what we can do.
I agree with you.
What we can do, and you know, that's what I want to get into tonight with you, mate. I want to talk about, you know, what we can do with and get people involved as well.
I think you got a very good point there.
Louise, we're not reading that out loud, obviously, but I can totally agree with your sentiment there, my beauty.
Right, we're going to go back. Well, the thing is, should we because
let's have a quick dive into chat, mate, and then
let's have a quick dive, shall we? I'm trying to get where. Bloody hell, there's so many. I don't know where. I've got to leave a few out. I'm terribly sorry. Please don't take it personally.
Mate, before we go into comment, let's say hello to Elizabeth as well, if we haven't already, and I don't think we have.
Hello, Elizabeth.
Is tonight. She's come over from Richie as well, and she was going to give us a go tonight. So, hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for joining us. And I hope it's not too much waffle so far for you.
That's all right. And she hasn't met Fred, the spider plant, who's just off the screen here. We didn't mention Fred, did we? He's probably going to get beat off, you know, with Eric and Ernie there. Now, I think I won't read this out, but Kat Hullis says, yes, I agree with you, Kat. Yeah, but you can understand why I don't read it out. It's a bit close to the bone because, you know, the old claxons at YouTube, HQ.
You're on niceness of on ethics. You need to be careful. Hello, Sean.
Now we got here. We can send in many ways all day long using debt currency, acknowledging their fake calendar, having titles, Mr., Mrs., having an address, are all forms of consent. That's right. This is why, as I live in the smallest country in the world, unless you know differently, commonly known as Fockham Hall. Well, that's the point. I like giving people, you know, we like to have fake titles. So What are you, Chris, in
I'm the
Fockable?
minister. I'm minister for agriculture, aren't I? Or minister for
I think you make a bloody good one.
Something like that. We've got one policy, mate, which was grow your own food without any nasty poisonous stuff. That was it. That was the policy. So yeah. But and, mate, living you Sean, you're right. But me and my wife, we fight that every day because we live in our own world that we've made up for ourselves with talking giraffes and all kinds of nonsense. So yes, you're right, mate, but we don't really pay much attention to most of that anyway. So
well, I think that this is what I'm, excuse my language, trying to take the P out of these titles. You know, someone's made a sir or a dame or all this. Who gives a shit?
Exactly.
And I think Godfrey Bloomer's right. It's an honour for failure because most of the people getting gongs are failures.
Well, mate, it's like if you consider me to be insane, I'll take that as a compliment in this world. You know, to be considered insane in a world like this, that's a compliment, mate. I wouldn't really want to be.
Well, you know, what is sanity? I mean, when you think about it, you know?
Yeah.
Shared.
Oh, well, thanks, William.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much. Yeah, it says here, not the yes.
Yes.
Yes. I think we can read between the lines here.
Yeah.
And we're not antiseptic here, are we? No, we're not at all antiseptic.
Not anti anything, mate, apart from anti-idiot. No, that's it.
No. But well, on with that story. When I was talking to that girl in the office about that gay pride thing, and she was in agreement with myself. And I said, you know, when the time comes, they're being used for an agenda. And when they've served a useful purpose, we'll all be put up against the wall. And that's it. And there's a Canadian that I worked with, and he was woke. This is the 1990s. Term woke wasn't used then, but he was, shall we say, so left wing and politically correct and had no sense of humour. And he called me, oh crumbs, he called me homophobic. He didn't know what this girl was. And what we did, I think with telepathy, I just grinned and I said, oh, thanks for the compliment. And then I went on and said, oh, actually, I'm, you know, antiseptic. And on Wednesdays, I'm a naughty Nazi. You'll see me goose stepping through the office, you know. So, and I just basically, and I always find that when someone gives you a nasty term like that, do the opposite. Just don't say, well, I'm not anything. Like, just go on. Just it's like subversion. You don't try and stop a fist that's coming towards you. You help it along.
Absolutely.
So you just turn it into humour and say, "Oh, thanks for the compliment," you know. And he walked off. It took the wind out of his sails. Yeah. But the thing is, he couldn't see what we were getting at. He couldn't see that these people are being used for an agenda and for a purpose. And when they've served their purpose, that's it.
Absolutely, mate. It's part of the brainwashing, isn't it, mate? You watch too much television and you'll lose the ability to think for yourself. And that's right. Thinking for yourself again is the way out, isn't it?
Tell-eye vision, isn't it? Tell-lie vision.
Yeah.
Also, legal consent has nothing to do with any form of agreement. It's about contracting and one's ability, competence to enter into contracts. Yes, that's why I don't like. I get a bit irritated with that.
That hurt my brain. That did, Sean.
Yes. Who's that bloke who's supposed to be a? Oh crumbs. Yeah, I won't read this one out. And yes, and
what bloke? You're rambling. What bloke? Which bloke? Where? Who's this bloke? You
said? Is the something? Oh, what's his name? Not karate. He does ancient arts, and he's a lawyer or solicitor or something. The lawyer, the black belt something or other. Black belt.
Right.
No, but if
anybody knows, pop it in chat.
Yeah, please put it in chat because you know, I've got a very the hard disk in my brain is not a very big one. It's an early one, you see, and it doesn't have.
You're old.
It doesn't remember very much, you see. It tends to sort of goes into overdrive a lot, you see. What's his name? The black belt something. and he is so establishment, it's beyond belief. You must not withhold your cultural text because that under law such and such a thing is because
they do this all the time though, don't they? It's like in Argentina, they chuck this guy in there and try to pretend that he was an anarcho-capitalist and that he was going to do great things, and the first thing he did was pop on a little hat and go across to the place we don't like to talk about.
Oh yes, the dolly on the head. Yes,
but you know, this is, and they did it with Macron as well, didn't they? They tried to make out that he was something different, and it turned out that he was a Rothschild banker. They do this all the time, mate. They like to chuck in something and pretend that it's something else to lift up the hopium and get everybody, thinking, and it always turns out to be a wet squib, mate. So
I agree with you. Yeah, totally agree with you there. Yeah, Notting Hill Carnival has changed a lot in the last few years.
It has, Faisal. I went in 2005 to Notting Hill Carnival. I really enjoyed it in terms of just like it was something different. I'm a country boy, we don't go to the city much and see all these wild city people. So it was I had a landlord at the time who was he had a flat in London in Notting Hill that he lived in with his brother and rented his house out in Lynn, and I was one of the people that lived there, and he invited me down, and it was lovely. He had a rooftop garden overlooking the parade route and everything, and it was just a really nice vibe. I had a really good day, but like I say, I'm just a simple country boy, so the city's always exciting for me.
There was just a good evening. As Robert, hello Robert. One and all, I have managed to escape the penal colony known as Mayfair. Hello, Chris.
Spot on, mate. Good to see you, Robert.
Hello, mate. How you going? You have to come on soon when
it was about time you had a bit of Robert.
Yeah,
he's been a busy man, hasn't he?
Well, we're getting Robert deficiency syndrome, haven't we? We
do
need a top up of Robert.
Yeah,
don't we, Robert?
Nice. It would be nice to have Robert on, mate.
Yeah, and now we got here. What is it? They all still keep taking the fiat currency despite doing sweet FA for it. Yes, well, that's all to do with usury. That Wiz Beach in Cams was all marshaled at one point.
Yeah, it was drained by the Dutch, Chris, which is why we've got quite a lot of Dutch. We've got a Dutch contingent around here. So my wife's related to one of the Dutch families in Lynn. There's a family called Van Pelt. They've got a butcher's in town, but they've also had various other businesses over the years. But my wife's related to them. A lot of Dutch settled over here. They drained the fens, mate.
Well, this is an interesting one. What's Ancient Ruby says, turning the people on the people.
Yeah, that's what they do.
That's right. That's and this is interesting. Robert says many people don't realise just how small London was in comparison to today. Like a huge beast, it swallowed up many boroughs. And in 1965, they changed it, didn't they? They expanded London. In fact, places like Tottenham were in Middlesex. They weren't in London. They're now in London. And Edmonton. My mother was born in Edmonton, Middlesex, not London.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Well, you were talking about the underground earlier, and one of the things the underground companies did when they built the lines was they built them out into the sticks, and then what they did was they bought up all the land where they were building the lines into, so they could make a killing on selling off and building houses for people to move into once they built these underground stations and
Metroland.
Yeah, and it expanded massively, didn't it? In the late Victorian. Sort of Edwardian times, it literally just boomed, didn't it? Because they started building all these boroughs, on the edge of London, with the idea being that people could live there and then hop on a train into central London to do their job in probably the docks or a factory or something like that back then.
That's right. And by the way, that name I was looking for is the Black Belt Barrister.
Right.
Nothing
personally against him, Chris.
I'm sure he's a very nice person, but I'm afraid I politely and respectfully disagree with a lot of what he says.
Yeah,
but I mean that in the politest sense, I don't mean to be rude to him.
Chris, he's entitled to have his say, isn't he, mate?
Correct. We're all entitled.
Exactly that.
If someone wants to put on, this is what gets me about censorship. Someone wants to talk to me and tell me that the moon is made of cheese, gorgonzola to be precise. I will listen to what they got to say, even though it's a load of cobblers, because they've got a right to say it. They've got a right to believe it.
Mate, that's one of the things I love about your shows is you will give people the opportunity to speak, and you a lot of the time you can see in your eyes when you don't agree with people, mate, but you'll still let them say it, and I think that's important. People need to have a voice, whatever. It doesn't matter whether we disagree with them. What's Faisal got here?
This is it. The excuse is normalisation, but the real purpose is to divide society. That's right. It's like
so many of it, yeah.
This idea that it's like with this gay pride, Notting Hill Carnival. It's a sort of a fake, shall we say, humanity, but it isn't. It's to divide. That's what it's to do. It's to divide. It's not to actually make people feel part of a community, part of things. I mean, I was hearing about, I think it was Syria, where they've got these different areas because there's all different religions, and that Syria is very more European than Middle East.
Yeah.
And each area, if you wander into an area, you won't be made to feel alienated or I shouldn't be here. No, the attitude is we are proud of this area. You're welcome as a guest. And if you go down one of their markets, they'll give you things because they think, oh, look, there's a welcome guest here. And that is a healthy way of being civic pride. That's you're proud of your area, you know. And
mate, I read a lot of travel books when I was younger. I did a little bit of traveling, but nothing on a grand scale. But every book that I read, the two countries that people seem to think were the friendliest in the world, mate, were Syria and Iran. They were the two places that most people had done quite a lot of proper traveling, you know, and they reckoned they were the two friendliest countries that they'd been to, Syria and Iran. And you look at what you see in the media about those countries.
I know. There was a bloke who worked at Dagenham Falls, and he left there and he decided to cycle around the world and write a book about it. I can't remember his name.
What a great!
And he said, and I was sitting on a train reading it, and he said that in Bangladesh, I think it was Bangladesh, somewhere like that, he had the two bob bits. He had to be rushed to hospital. And he rushed to hospital and he was in the poorest area and he thought he'd never see his bike again. He was in the hospital for a couple of days. When he went back to where he left his bike, somebody had even not only cleaned it, but somebody else had pumped his tyres up. There it was. Prestige. But he got mugged 3 times in Hollywood and people were stepping over him.
Yeah.
But I remember I said that a couple of weeks ago. Now, this is an interesting one. Hell is a place much like London. Shelley.
Shelley who, Chris? That's not the TV sitcom bloke Shelley, is it? Is that
no. Shelley was oh bloody hell! Shelley was around, I think, in the early 1800s.
Just showing my ignorance tonight, aren't I, mate? I'm not even aware of half what people are talking about.
Now, this is interesting, and I agree with you, Louise. Pride Month is my ultra. It's not about being homosexual. It is to be outlandishly freakish. Spot on.
It's for the night time, isn't it? It's for an adult audience. It's not something that should be flaunted on the streets in daylight in front of children. It isn't.
That's right.
I don't care. If that makes me a homophobe, then that makes me a homophobe.
No, you're not. I'm not. I've worked with people that are gay, and nicest people you could ever wish to meet.
Our friend in Siam, John, would have something to say on this. He would be against this as well because I've read
he is, and I haven't got permission to, but you put it in chat, so I can, I suppose.
Yeah.
If you go on to BitChute, last week's show, and you'll see what he said,
yeah, you'll see what
and
John
you'll see my reply.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, John's put it on the record, mate. He's not been shy about saying what he thinks about it. And John's a splendid fellow, so you know.
Excellent man. Yes. He's actually the ambassador for Siam, isn't he? Football ambassador out there.
Chris, bear with me 1 second. I'll be back.
I will. Well, I'll go on to the other one. It says here, quote is from Shelley at Oxford by Heathcote Williams. So there we are.
Right, okay.
And we've got Urban Fox. Hi, Chris. Hello, and Wayne. CTG. Hope you're both well. Just one minute. Yeah, I think we're all right. I'm waiting for my tips on what to grow.
There, you see. Now you need to reel it in after we've done this little chat, and we need to start talking about growing food.
I'm sat here with my trowel in my head, but I've no idea what to do with it. We could tell you what to do with it. Right?
You can smack Chris on the head with it, mate. Bring him back on the topic.
Shall we go back onto topic now?
Mate, I think we should. I think, I think what we want to do, don't we, is we want to try and inspire some people to do something for themselves and take some responsibility. We're not in a particularly fruitful time of the year at the moment, as in there's not a lot. You're not going to be putting seeds in at this time of year, but that doesn't mean there aren't things that you can't do. And it doesn't mean that you can't be thinking about. I mean, for me at the moment, very much this month is about planning, and it's about working out what I'm going to grow, where I'm going to grow it, and how I'm going to go about it. Last year for me was a bit of a trial run. It was the first time for a long time that I'd seriously grown any food. I've always done bits in my adult life. People have always given me plants in the summer. Here, Chris, here's a couple of tomato plants. Here's a courgette or whatever. I used to grow them on the flat roof on the extension where I used to live in Lynn. I used to have courgettes and tomatoes on the flat roof in the summer. So I've always dabbled in a bit, but last year was the first time I took it seriously. This year, hopefully, we'll do a lot better. But for me at the moment, I'm very much in the planning kind of stage, thinking about what I'm going to grow, how I'm going to go about it, and where I'm going to do it. We're going to put our names down for an allotment because we've got allotments at the bottom of the road, mate. It's less than 5 minutes walk. So we're hopefully going to get an allotment, but I appreciate not everyone can do that.
I've got an embarrassing question about my potatoes, and as you're a potato agony uncle, can we share this here? And it's not about the size of them or the thickness of them. It's no, actually.
Are they good?
Well, I'm wondering whether I dig them up tomorrow because some of it's still green and part of it's dying off. So do you think it's about time?
Have them up, mate. I should think they're ready. If the plants have started to droop, then you're going to have spuds there, mate. But at the same time, I mean, I don't dig all mine up at once, Chris. I just take out what I need and leave the rest in the ground.
That's an idea because they're reds. These ones are.
Yeah, they'll be fine, mate. Mate, how many times have you planted potatoes and dug up a couple of spuds from a previous year?
I don't. Well, I always put them in buckets, so I don't.
See, if you do them in the ground, quite often that happens. You'll be putting the next year's in, and you'll dig a couple up from the previous year or whatever, and they're fine. I've eaten them. So
mine is slugs, and you see, vegetarians can't eat my potatoes because it's half slug. There's bloody slugs out there. Yeah, bastards. But I put me straw over, so I hope the sods don't attack it.
Mate, are you getting any feedback from me on the sound, or is it all right?
No, it seems to be all right.
No, it's okay. It just sounds a bit scratchy, my end, but as long as it's all right, then that's cool.
It's all right. Is it a good time to plant spuds in buckets?
No, you don't want to plant them yet. What you want to do is, if you're going to get your spuds, you can buy your seed potatoes now, and you can chip them. So
you need toilet paper for that.
You chip them. So you put them in a. Oh God, have I got this? It's light you need, isn't it, to get them going? I think to get them to seed, they need to be in a light light space, and it's heat and light, isn't it? They need to be somewhere reasonably humid. Yeah, or somewhere warm. But I think they need light as well for them to chip. But basically, what you do is you get them so that the eyes start coming out, and you can buy them now and get them to start doing that. But you don't want to put them outside in the ground, mate. At the moment,
no,
it's too cold.
It's cold outside. But do you know what my greenhouse was today? 75.
What's that in new money, Eric? Because I work in.
I would say it's about 17, 18.
That's pretty decent, mate. It felt like.
Oh, hang on, 20, because you double it, don't you? 2 2s are 4. It's 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, just over 20.
Mate, that's fantastic. And have you got a paraffin heater in there, or?
No heating at all. No, because it's in the sun. Nice. It's south facing, so it's in the sun with a wall behind it.
And so it's been sunny today, hasn't it?
Yeah, so it's nice and sunny. I couldn't believe it when I went in there, which is nice,
mate.
you know.
Yes. Do you know what, mate? It was so cold this morning. I stuck it from 8 until 12:30, and at 12:30, I had a headache, mate. I was so cold. I was like, nah, I'm going home.
Well, actually, cold weather, and this is what we can go on to, is it felt like somebody drilling into pineal gland, because I had a head. It really makes your head ache, and it makes me feel sick. Cold weather, when you're breathing in that cold air, you feel sick. It makes me feel sick.
Yeah, I had a ton of shingle to move this morning, so that weren't too bad, because that kept me going for a bit. I had some shingle dropped off this morning that I had to bower and move, so that wasn't a bad hour when I was doing that. But the rest of the time, mate, when I was like weeding on my knees, I mean, the ground was solid as well. You can't do a lot in January apart from set out your battle plan, really, get your game plan going. You can start bits and pieces off inside if you want, mate. I've done lettuces on the windowsill in January before, but the trouble is you don't really want to be putting much outside until the frosts are over, and that's not really guaranteed.
Cold frame.
Cold frame is it will protect from the frost, but even still, mate, at the moment there isn't a lot. I mean, you can grow. What can you grow at the moment? Broad beans, sprouts.
What about garlic? Is it a bit late for garlic?
It's a bit late now, mate. My garlic went in November, so I've got 3 lots of garlic in. I've got pink garlic. I've got just some bog standard garlic, and then I've got 2 of the elephant garlic, the large ones, the humongous ones. But I put them in November. They should go in before the first frost, shouldn't they?
I think so, yeah. Because I mean, we're going to get some really bad frosts over the next couple of days.
Well, my garlic is about, I have to remember where the camera is. It's about probably sort of, I don't know, 4 inches, I think, out of the ground now, mate.
Blimey, that's not bad.
And mate, I've got to show you this while we're on the subject of growing. You can't eat it, but have a look at my amaryllis.
Wow, way!
Look at that,
fantastic! That is brilliant.
All right, isn't it?
Wow. By the way, how's Fred's offsprings doing? Are they okay?
There you go. There are Fred's.
That's Fred's offspring. That's it. There they are.
They're all doing well, mate. They could actually do a little bit of a drink.
Well, actually, they're great grandchildren, because they came out of the greenhouse. Because I thought they'd be a bit more hardier to stand up the journey.
They're doing, mate. They're doing well. Once that I probably in the spring, I shall put them in pots and then distribute them around the house, and we'll get more babies off them, I'm sure, and we'll have more. I didn't realise they were air purifiers, mate.
They are.
No, I've read up. Mate, I don't take anybody at their word. Anything says to me, I look into it, and when you said it, I had a look, and you're right, they are, mate.
And they put up with my, shall we say, Brussels sprouts backfiring. So one of them did drop as well. That's right. And so you have to have a few fart gags.
Chris, to be fair, Fred got you a Christmas card. I bet you didn't get him one.
Nah. Okay.
There you go. Well, Fred puts up with a lot.
He certainly does. Hang on, let's turn the camera and let's show him.
I was going to say, bring Fred in there. Oh, look at it. Majestic.
Look at that. That's Fred.
Good.
All the family roundings. He's a family man or woman, because plants are not male or female, are they? They're sort of, I don't
know. Yeah, I guess. Well, you say that some plants are, mate. If you look at hemp, let's use the word hemp. Hemp have male and female plants, mate.
Apple trees, they have male and female, don't they?
Yeah. So you do get the female male split in the plant kingdom as well.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? But through archaeologists with all these loads of different sexes, whenever they dig down, they'll either find male or female, don't they? They don't say, well, this one's sort of, we don't know what this is.
No, we don't get many, we don't find many non-binary skeletons, do we?
No, we've got a non-binary skeleton, you know. Now we've got here, that's life, but not as we know it. I'm up in northeast Scotland, So all indoors until I feel we are over the worst. Oh, you poor
I don't blame
son.
you, mate. Yeah, Jesus. There was somebody put on the chat today that it was -42 in Canada, I think.
Mind you, it's a dry cold. You see, I
don't care what it is. It's
from Eastern Europe, and he said that it gets to about -20 and 30 over there. But he said when he came to Britain, he said it's a coldness that eats into your bones. He said
it does.
Over there. I mean, I went to Austria, and I remember throwing snowballs on the top of this was on top of a mountain, and you put your hand in the snow, it's dry.
Right.
It's a different type of cold.
Yeah.
It really is. This is an island cold here, and that is.
It is. Yeah. It's definitely cold up north.
Next is here. That's life, but not as we know it. Is cow, spinach, lettuce, and radishes.
Right. There you go.
You can start seeds for tomatoes, peppers, and herbs indoors.
Yes.
For later transplanting.
Yeah, you're spot on, William. I would agree with that. I don't tend to start mine though till sort of beginning of February, just because they're not. Otherwise, they end up too big, and I ain't got the room for them. So, but you're spot on, mate. You can definitely. I've had lettuces going in January before. Radishes, mate, are the easiest thing in the world to grow.
The trouble is, I'm not sure Fred could stand up to the, shall we say, the exhaust fumes from my radishes, because they do tend to have an effect on me. You see.
I don't really like them. I've got several bags of radish seeds, mate, just because there's something that you can grow in 4 weeks. You can eat a radish from 4 weeks of putting a seed in the ground. So radishes are good seeds to have, I think, because if it all goes,
as long as you don't eat too many, because they can make you feel a bit ill, can't
they? Yeah, apparently so. But I think they say that about a lot of things, don't they? Wasn't there a thing in the Middle Ages where loads of aristocracy were getting ill because all they were eating was rabbits or something?
If you eat too much of anything, if you can eat too much apple pie, it'd kill you. I mean, there was a case of a bloke in London who every day had egg and chips, and he went to hospital, and they found out he's suffering from malnutrition because his body got used to it, and he's not having a variety of food.
This, mate, we're all different. Some people could probably survive on an egg a day, and they'd live fine like it. We're all, every single one of us is wired differently, mate.
That's
so
right.
What works for one person might not work for someone else, but yeah.
Well, now this is an interesting one. Was considering lining the inside of my glass greenhouse with bubble wrap. I do that, and that's what bubble wrap was originally designed for. Do you know that's why it's originally invented?
No, I didn't, mate.
They used it for packaging as an afterthought.
Well, because mate, that's a great idea. Yeah, it's going to insulate, isn't it, mate? And it's going to let the sun in as well. It's kind of almost like you're building a polytunnel inside your greenhouse, aren't you?
Yeah, that's what I do. And mine's a homemade greenhouse. It's up against a wall, and I've actually got a spider plant in there. It survives over the night.
Mate. Our customers keep spider plants in greenhouses through the winter, and they're fine. Yeah.
Now we've got here a question for Chris the gardener. I'm planning to start growing this year. What would you say are the easiest things to start with? That's from Mark Anthony. So far away, Chris.
Spuds are one of the easiest, aren't they, Chris? Spuds are a doddle. If you're putting them in the ground, all you've got to do is dig a hole, drop your spuds in, cover them up, and then mould them up as well, Mark. So when you do your spuds in the ground, you don't leave the earth flat. You mould it up, as we say in Norfolk, and you build a hill on top of the potatoes, give them a bit more earth, so you get more spuds. So there's more for the stem to grow through. So you'll get them spuds coming right up near the surface. So we call it moulding them up around here. But yeah, spuds are easy, mate. Stuff staples, and think about what you like as well, Mark. Nothing is beyond your ability. You can grow anything if you want to. It's a lot of trial and error. Carrots are a doddle, mate. Stuff like lettuces as well. It's mate, and kale. Like William said, kale is really easy to grow, mate. As long as you keep the pigeons off it, they love a bit of kale. They do. But there's so many things. Nothing is. I've not found anything that's impossible. The only thing I haven't been able to do so far is crack off strawberry seeds. I put in 20 strawberry seeds last summer, and I didn't get a single shoot from one of them. I ended up getting some strawberry plants off a customer that they'd got in their garden, taking them home. and getting some strawberries like that. So that's the only thing I haven't been able to do is to get strawberry seeds started. Everything else I've tried to do, if not the first time, I've done it. And it's just trial and error. And I just, you know, Chris, you've seen my garden. I grow in mostly in pots at the moment. So, and I'm at an advantage here. I admit that, because I'm a gardener, because I go and see a lot of different people with gardeners. It's easy for me to pick up old water butts and pots. I mean, I went to a lady at the weekend. She's got about 20 pots that she wants to get rid of. So I'll probably have them next time I'm there. So I am in an advantage position because of what I do. So I do get a lot more. But having said that, everybody's got old plastic containers in their house. We've talked about it before, mate. You could grow in a carrier bag if you want to, as long as you put some holes in the bottom of it for drainage. You can fill it up with soil and grow in it.
Well, that's the thing. And also, people say, "Oh, it's so cheap to buy celery. Why are you growing it?" Well, the reason why is because the celery you buy in the shops is tasteless. That celery that I showed you there. Yeah. In fact, I'll have a little bit. Well, no, I won't. But this taste of celery. This is organic.
Yeah. This is and it's been grown with love. It's got love around it, mate, and I believe in that. Well, I you know, I think there's a lot more to this world than what we think, and a lot more than what we know. And the way we approach things, if you're pouring your soul into something and you're growing it with love and you're tender, you're tending to it and nurturing it, there's an equal, like you say, it tastes so much better. I put some late set carrots in, mate. I put some carrot seeds in August, and I didn't really expect to get a lot from them, but I actually ended up with a tub full of carrots at Christmas. And we were pulling carrots out the garden, mate. In the week between Christmas and New Year, we had carrots out the garden, mate, which was amazing. Again, that was just an experiment. That most people would tell you that I would get nothing from it, but I just try things, mate. I don't,
Miles, the chap who's got the health shop, he says we've got to have a lot of leafy stuff. So he has a lettuce. He's always into lettuces and things like that. And I buy little gem lettuces, but I'd like to grow my own. But I can't, where I live, you can't grow lettuces in the garden. There's slugs like them. There's too many slugs. That's the real big problem.
But why don't you just do them in pots on your kitchen windowsill, Chris?
That's what I'm planning to do.
Yeah,
I'll put them in my greenhouse, but little bastards get into there as well now.
Yeah, they will, mate. They had all my I didn't get a single. I had 20 cauliflowers I put in the garden. I grew from seed on the kitchen windowsills, kicked them off in I think April, grew them on the windowsill, had them out in here for about 2-3 months, looking after them, put them out in the garden. And the cabbage moths, is it the white ones?
White cabbage moth, yes.
Yeah, decimated them, mate. And it's my own fault because I wasn't policing them. I wasn't, I'm quite good normally. Like with my lettuce, I'm like a Nazi with the slugs on there, mate. I'm out there every night with a torch, checking the leaves and that. But I neglected my cauliflowers, mate, and they got eaten. So I didn't get one.
Because if you go, apparently, French marigolds around cauliflowers and brassicas, the cabbage moths gets the scent actually puts them off.
Same with tomato plants, mate. If you put, and I learned that off one of your shows. I think that was when we were on with Jenny, and we were talking about it, and she said about tomato plants. So that's what I'm going to do this year. And that's another thing. I had French marigolds around my carrots last year. Do you remember?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's around cabbages, wasn't it? It puts the cabbage moth off. I think, is it?
No, it's French marigolds with carrots because they look similar, don't they? So the carrot flies go for the marigolds and not the carrots, I think was what you told me.
Yes, but I think it's the tomato plants. They give off something because they're a prehistoric plant. They're very old. Yeah. They come from the old world. And I think you can grow cabbages around them and the cabbage moths won't go near.
Cabbages or cauliflowers, mate. I think that both the principle works the same for both because they both have the same predators, don't they?
That's right. This is interesting.
That is my plan, mate, this year.
A friend of mine, this is DJ Flipped. A friend of mine is using artificial UV lighting to start plants off early. Yeah. He said they're doing very well. Trouble is, you've got to think of the electricity, though.
Well, UV lighting was coming into play about 20 years ago when I was. We've got to be careful. When I was doing a little bit of indoor growing with some 600 watt metal halide bulbs and things like that. And UV lighting had just come into play then, and the people with in the indoor plant growing community were talking about UV lighting quite a lot back in 2005, 2006, and people were saying then how it was that the yields that people were getting were a lot more than if they were growing under the standard metal halide lights. So I think UV lighting potentially, it can be I'm trying to avoid anything like that. I just want to grow with nature. That's all. I don't want any gimmicks. I don't want any heated propagators or anything like that. I just want to grow my windowsill, my garden, and hopefully soon my allotment, mate, and a greenhouse. I'll go to a greenhouse. I don't want anything else. I really don't, mate. I'm making my own compost.
I do. Yeah, I do my own compost, and now we got this an interesting one. In January, this is life, that's life, but not as we know it. In January, focus on pruning your fruit trees.
Yeah.
Cultivating winter cross. Is it wise? I don't know. They're cutting when there's a frost about. I know you shouldn't cut a rosemary because the frost will kill it. If you
some things it will. Some, mate, it depends. It's like anything, isn't it? You everybody's got different, mate. I'm a gardener. I go to a lot of different gardens. Everybody's got a different idea of what's right and what isn't. Go with your gut. That's my motto on everything. Yeah, just go with your gut. And but when I'm in people's gardens, I do what I'm told. So if they don't want things pruned until a certain time, they don't get pruned till a certain time. I go to a variety of people. I've got some people who can't wait for things to even finish. They'll start cutting them down before they've even finished. And I've got other people that will let flower heads go right through into the following spring because they like the birds to be involved and they like to. So yeah, I'm with William. I think there's nothing wrong with cutting things back in January. You cut your roses back end of January, beginning of February, don't you?
Yeah.
And you get frost, and it depends. And most fruit trees that are growing in this country, apples, plums, pears, quince, things like that, they are pretty hardy. They've got to be to survive in this country anyway, mate.
That's right. That's right. They're tough sods. And this is interesting. Mark the Shark says, going to grow many things on the big island of Hawaii.
Oh, Mark, I am envious, mate. I'd love to go to
Very
Hawaii.
envious.
Food.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very envious. Jack,
anywhere hot, mate. Must be brilliant to live somewhere where you can grow all year round.
That's right. It was just freezing. What is -2 here this morning,
mate? And, this is
bloody freezing.
Who'd want to spend time outdoors today if they didn't have to, mate? I told you I gave up at lunchtime a day, mate. It's there's no fun. I can't wait for the spring, mate, and then gardening becomes fun again then.
Well, I can't. You see, I love driving. I like car driving, and also like cycling. And for 6 months of the year, I can't cycle because it's too bloody cold. I mean, you were saying, was it 7 layers? I think I'd need 20 layers for on a bike. But I always think of Jack Lord, book him, Dano, Hawaii 5-0. Remember that? Now we've got here. I've never met anyone who told me, this is DJ Flit, they agreed with any of this woke PC stuff. And I have brought up the subject with both normies and alternative thinkers. Yes.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think most people just, but a lot of people are too scared to say how they really feel, which I think is part of the problem. It's allowed to, it's allowed to just roll forward without anybody calling it out. I think if people said what was in their hearts, then the world would be a better place, instead of just going along with something because we're worried that, it might make us unpopular to have a different opinion. Sorry, mate, we're going to have to let the hound out here.
Well, the trouble is, I think people take themselves too seriously because why can't we laugh? Humans are funny. And why can't we laugh at ourselves? I mean, I've heard the best Irish gags from Irish people. I've heard the best Jewish gags from Jewish people. I've had, people are funny. And why can't we just have a bloody laugh? And if someone's upset about it, well, they're either something mentally wrong with them, or they just haven't got a sense of humour. I mean,
People are very sensitive these days, aren't they, mate? The whole point of comedy is that it's supposed to be a joke, isn't it? That's the whole point. And you know, I wouldn't want to be a comedian these days, mate. It's a tightrope. It really is.
Well, my uncles, I mean, they today, no, they wouldn't. I mean, some of the gags they came out with years ago, they were stand-up comedians. You know, but they wouldn't like it today. They definitely wouldn't.
No, they wouldn't, mate.
Was this Tinkle Tink says, grow weed, lots of it. It was like the bleeding weeds in my garden. I know what you mean, though. I think you'd agree with that.
I'm not allowed. I'm not allowed. It would freak the wife out far too much. I'd love to grow my own.
Yes.
And if I was made Minister of Agriculture, that'd be another policy. I'd encourage people to grow that plant as much as they could.
I would. They've grown it for thousands of years.
Yeah, mate, we'd go back to making clothes, paper. You know, that plant has so much benefit and use.
Right, next is here. Ancient Ruby says, what will you do when they announce a meteor will hit our Earth? I think I'll crap myself, actually.
Mate, same as I always do. Just ignore them and carry on and see what happens. I'm not going to start running to the hills just because they tell me that they've come out with that one before. Weren't we supposed to be getting one hitting in 2035? Was it in the 80s? Do you not remember that, Chris?
I remember that. Oh, yeah, that was it. Yeah, it was Ailey's Comet we had, and then we had another one.
No, but there was something in the 80s where they said they'd identified an asteroid that was going to collide with the Earth in something like 2035. And nobody really gave it much thought because, it's 55 years away or whatever. But my point is, mate, they come out with crap like this all the time. I don't believe anything that they say anymore.
Well, I agree with you. In fact, I actually look at all news. I mean, the only time I heard official news was the other day I was in my car and I put Classic FM on. And to me, it wasn't news. It was a pantomime of propaganda. I call it a propaganda pantomime. That's all it is. It's just a load of. Now we've got here Chris Gardner. This is Robert Dorr. The life skills we need to survive the trauma they have planned for us are the very same ones that will set us free.
Yeah, that's a brilliant way of putting it, Robert, and I totally agree with you there, mate. They're not only just gonna like set you free from the system, but they'll set you free, mate. Like getting involved with nature, with growing food, foraging food, whatever. It'll change your train of thought as well in so many other places.
I agree with you because they reckon that people that live in forests and near waterfalls don't get cancers. Right. They're sort of very at peace and calm. And there was a scientist once speaking. He said, if you want to live to over 100, become a gardener. Gardeners, well, that's a good thing. Gardeners are the longest living. And do you know who the shortest living are?
I don't know, fishermen?
Doctors. Seriously. Right. If you look up Dr. Joel Wallach, Dead Doctors Don't Lie, I think it might be on Screw YouTube, I'm not sure, or you might find it on BitChute. He found, I think the average age is either 56 or 58 when they die.
Right, that's better. Bear with me, Chris. It's like Piccadilly Circus at the moment here.
Now, Mark Anthony, I saw an interesting article on the ancient practice called electroculture. I think I better read. I'll hold yours in abeyance until Chris comes back, I think. And I'll just read civic. This is Robert Dorr. Civic pride is a good case. I point. The power should never be, have a vested interest in society's degeneration. I 100% agree with you, and that's what all this bloody flaunting crap is all about. That's all it's about, you know. Now, this is Mark Anthony. I saw an interesting article on the ancient practice called electroculture, which harnesses the Earth's atmospheric energy to increase yields when growing food. Does Chris the Gardener know anything about this?
Very little, Mark. I wanted to get into this tonight because I was hoping somebody in the chat would bring this up. This is something that I still haven't had much time to look into, but there's a couple of trains of thought, or what I'm aware of so far. What Mark says is right. There's some kind of relationship between electricity and also copper as well, and the soil. There's a train of thought that using copper tools is going to benefit the soil. You see, I've got to be honest with you, I've been a gardener for 2.5 years. I probably still don't really fully understand the soil. There's lots of different trains of thought, isn't there? There's some people that think the less you disturb the soil, the better. Other people, obviously, you've got things like permaculture, which is just basically about throwing a load of stuff on top and never disturbing the soil, isn't it? And just constantly sort of building up. And this electroculture, if anybody knows anything in the chat, pop it in chat and we'll speak about it. I don't know enough. I'm not going to sit here now and preach like I qualified to talk about this, because you know me, Chris. If I don't know something, I'll say I don't really know. And the fact is on this, I really don't know, but I really am interested in it. And I'd love to have a conversation about it. And I'd love to, if there's somebody on chat that knows about it, hit us up with some information or tell us where to go to find out, because I mean, like, it's like the one thing I know a little bit about is the growing in pyramids in Russia, that they've been growing in pyramid structures and getting like outrageous yields from it and things like that. Yeah. There's so much, isn't there? We don't know.
Well, what I've done, you know my spuds that are in a bucket. I've actually got a copper pipe that I stuck in the middle of it.
Right.
And I put an old flower pot on the top so I don't bash my eye out. You know, to safety. Yeah. So I'll tell you how they've gone.
Yeah. Again.
And I did that when I first planted them, so they've been there all the time with just a copper 15mm pipe sticking out to about a couple of foot, and that's it. I had a bit of copper pipe hanging around in my shed.
Right. You have to let us know. You know what. I need to find a good book. That's what I really need, because I've had a little skit, some videos and things on YouTube, but I haven't. The thing with me is, if it doesn't grab me in the first minute, it's not going to grab me, if you know what I mean. And I have tried to look at some stuff, but it's just not been to my taste, and I've not found anything that resonates with me.
Also, old gardening books. I mean, I got one that was printed in the 40s, and all the pictures are black and white. So whenever you see pictures of the garden, it always looks like an overcast day, you know. And it's sort of men with bow ties, well, not bow ties, but with shirts and ties and collars, you know, all sort of look as if they're dressed to go into the office. They're gardeners, you know. Now, this is that's life, but not as we know it. I'm at uni and now studying horticulture. Loving this. Many thanks.
I'm with him.
Yes, and Sean Hamer says, fear is the only virus and their only weapon. I said the word I shouldn't have said. Never mind.
Oh, mate, it's all right. We've said that word before and we're still here.
Yeah.
I accused your computer of having one of them when you showed up the picture of the flag of the country that we don't like to talk about.
Oh, yes, the computer.
I said that word there. So, yeah, we're talking about
we should. Right. Okay. World War I was a reset. Now we are in another. Yes, I agree.
They did a lot, didn't they, on the back end of World War I? They brought passports in after World War I, didn't they?
Yes. And did you know that the Rothschilds bankrupted Britain at the Battle of Waterloo because they owned the press, and they said we'd lost the Battle of Waterloo and brought up all the stocks. And that's it. Yes. So.
Yes. Well, Nathan Rothschild stood in. It's not quite as some alternative media people have you believe, but there was definitely something nefarious going on. I mean, he literally started selling off stocks that morning, knowing that we'd won. And once other people saw that he was selling, they began to sell. The prices of the stocks fell. He then started gobbling them back up when they were next to nothing, and he made a killing. But he was pretty rich before then anyway.
Well, there was something to do with the French Revolution as well, weren't they?
Yeah, they were involved right back in. Well, they were linked with nobility even before they left Germany when they were in Frankfurt. they were still linked with nobility. He used to sell rare coins and buy and sell rare coins from nobility and things like that, didn't he? And he used to give them preferential rates. And the other thing a lot of people don't know is as well, it was Frankfurt, wasn't it, they originated from?
I think so, yes.
I'm pretty sure it was. Correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, anyone, but I think it was Frankfurt. But they shared a house with the Schiff family and intermarried between them. And that's why the Red Shield people aren't so prominent in America. It's more the Schiffs, because the Schiffs were the ones that went out to America and made it over there, that took the dynasty over there.
That's interesting, because I know that books about them don't tell you very much. That's what Godfrey Bloom said. He said you can read books about them, but you won't find out very much about them. They're very mysterious.
Older books, Chris. There was a lot of books written in 100 years ago. There was a lot more truth written about them then.
Really? You find a lot of 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Because when you look at some of the things, some of the inventions and some of the things, for example, that fuel economy thing. I was watching a chap talking about a device that was invented during World War II, which was found to save a lot on fuel. And they don't use it today. It's been trashed, and they trashed it. They just made up a load of stuff. There was no scientific research into it, but scientifically it works.
Well, there was a guy in the 70s that made a car that ran on water, and they whacked him. He was on a local American news channel, and he'd had independent scientists corroborate that this thing was real and it worked. And he got onto a local news channel. I wish I could remember the guy's name. And on the back of that, he was met by some foreign businessmen who wanted to buy help him invest in this thing and make it run. And his brother said he ran out of the restaurant after taking a swig of his drink, and his last words were, "They poisoned me," as he died on the street. And this brother never heard from these businessmen again that wanted to invest in this thing. Nobody ever heard from them again. So yeah, they're not going to let anything come out that interferes with their way of doing things, are they? They're always going to try to suppress things like that.
That's right. I mean, my first car was a Morris 1000, and that did 38 to 40 to the gallon, and that was built in. It was a very old second-hand car when I bought it, and that was built in 1965, and it's still on the road. Right. I looked it up, it's still on the road. It's a Morris Traveller. It was an estate, and I had it for years. And the thing is that I actually virtually rebuilt the car, and it was old then. It was on the road. It was an old bagger, isn't it? But the thing is that the Morris 1000. How comes that engine, the Series A engine, could do 40 to the gallon, but now they're not doing much better than that, really, right? Like 50 maybe.
Well, my old Fiat Uno, mate, used to get about 40, 45.
Yeah.
And that was an 87.
Well, my 1989 Toyota Carina, and it's 2 litre fuel injected. Yeah. That does 39 to the gallon.
I know, mate. You've told me about your Toyota.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'll have to come visit you in it, So.
Hey, you're going to come and see us in the summer anyway. We're going to go and have a little tour around the Norfolk coast.
Oh, great! I look forward to that.
And we are, mate. You're going to get yourself out of the hellhole of the ever encroaching London and come up for some real country air, mate.
Yeah, that's right. It says and there's somebody else here that said I had a Morris Traveller.
Nice.
I know, they're lovely, aren't they? Very nice. The only trouble is that there's a design fault. When you topped up the brake fluid, it was underneath the driver's side floor. So if you spilt it, it rotted all the floor away. Nice. Yeah, and it's drum brakes all the way around. So you didn't apply the brakes. You stood on them and you became very religious when you drive a Morris 1000 because you pray that you're going to stop.
They were great little cars, though, weren't they? I love the wood, mate, on the side. The fact that they were made of wood.
Our greenhouses. You're driving along, and it used to creak with the weather. It used to move.
Mate, my Dolomite, when I had a Triumph Dolomite, that was my first car, and mate, when it rained, water used to come in through places that you didn't even imagine water could come into a car for you, like through the dashboard, used to come out the steering wheel column sometimes. But mate, I love that car. HPP 724V, mate. I can still remember the number plate.
WRF 139C.
There you go. You see,
and
we're both quite clearly autistic, Chris.
That's it. The guy who invented the water-powered car was
Stan Meyer. Well done, Mark. Well done, mate. Yeah, he's spot on. It was Stan Meyer. Yeah.
That
well
was
done, Mark.
The other thing with the Morris Traveller is the heater had two settings: freezing cold and boiling hot, and nothing much in between.
Right, mate. Very quick story on car heaters. So my second car was a Austin Maestro, an E-Reg Maestro, E840 CC8.
Oh, sod. With the square steering wheel. Was it the square steering wheel?
It was
Allegro, that's right.
No, that was the Allegro. Mine was, it was a 1.3. It was one of the silver grey ones with the red trim. And it was a nightmare. And the heater broke on it. I'd had it about 2.5 years and the heater broke. And my stepdad, lovely bloke, top man, he said to me, he said, I'll phone Robertson's, because this was in the days when you had scrapyard still, mate. So we had a scrapyard in Wirral, and he said, I'll phone Robertson's, they've got one. I said, you sure it's the right one? It's the right one. So I'll pick you up Sunday morning, we'll go and get it. Anyway, he picked me up Sunday, mate, it was snowing. It was freaking snowing. We drove out to this scrapyard in the snow, about 20 miles from where I live. And we got to this. He said, I'm Richard, I've come for the heat of the Maestro. Yeah, the Maestro's over here, you have to take it out yourself. Right, okay. We walked over at this Maestro, mate, looked at it straight away, knew it wasn't the right heater. Said to him, it's not the right one. Yes, it is. I'm telling you, mate, that isn't going to fit him. Yes, it is. Yeah. Anyway, we spent 2 hours in the snow getting this bloody heater out of this Maestro, drove back to mine, and he opened the door of the Maestro and he looked at it. He went, well, that ain't the right one. I'm freaking told you that like 2 hours ago. And I paid 20 quid for this piece of crap that I was never going to have any use for as well. And we spent 2 hours. It weren't the 20 quid, mate. I was more bothered about the 2 hours in the snow getting the heater out of the Maestro. But just the fact that he wouldn't listen to me, mate. And I've never let him forget it. I've never let him forget it. That would have been 25 years ago now, mate. And I'm still talking about it.
And Maestros, they used to go through timing chains. I think they were the problem with timing chains. I had a Morris Marina once, and the only thing that didn't go wrong with it was the doors didn't fall off. It's like a clown car. You get in it and you think, I wonder what's going to go wrong next. And you'd be driving along. You notice you don't see any Morris Marinas on the road now.
You don't see many, not unless you go to specialist shows. My nan had a couple of Marinas, mate. They were crap. And then they had one last throw of the dice, didn't they, with the Ital before they just put it to bed. Do you remember?
I remember that. And I bought a Nissan. What do they call it? Sedan. It's a sort of sporty looking one. When I opened the bonnet and looked inside, the hood, if you're in America, I thought, I recognise that engine. And what the Japanese had done, they got a Series A engine. It was almost identical to a Morris 1000 engine. You look inside it, and it was aluminium. And they'd actually designed it, all the faults that was on the Series A, which was a pretty good engine. There was like a top hose that used to go. They actually designed it without a top hose. And they'd actually ironed out all the faults with it. Right. And that's what went, and that's Series A engine.
Wasn't it the Iranians, Chris, that bought a British car factory assembly line and then shipped it over to Iran and started making it? Are they called Paycans or something like that?
That's it.
And what was it? They were the old. What were they? Were they a Hillman or a? But they bought the factory, didn't they? They literally bought the production line, took it over to Iran.
That's right. Just trying to think what it was. I think it was the Hillman Avenger.
It might have been. But
I know the Indians bought the Austrian Ambassador, which was the old one from the 50s, and there was last thing I think they was making them until recently.
Well, still making Beetles in Brazil, weren't they, in the 90s and that? South America, they were still making VW Beetles. Mate, we're not talking about gardening again, are we?
No, we've gone off. When you start me on about cars, it's one of my passions. I'm a petrol. I love cars and I love push bikes, which is a bit
as bad as each other.
That's right.
It takes one little comment and we're off on a tangent.
I must ask you this one personal question beforehand. Have you ever got into motorbikes? Because I've never got into motorbikes.
Mate, I can't do the gears with the feet. My best mate, when I was 16, built a motorbike from scratch. He really did. Yeah. Built it out of bits. And mate, we used to go all over the UK on that when we were sort of 16, 17. Me on the back, him riding it. We'd go camping in places like Holmfirth in Derbyshire. We'd go up to Kinder Scout, spend a night up there. We'd go up to Malham in all over the place, mate, on the back of this bike. But every time he tried to teach me how to do it, mate, I couldn't get the freaking hang of the gears with your feet. I just couldn't do it, mate. So when I was 14, there was 3 sort of cads in our village, me, Spencer and Lee, and all 3 of us illegally had mopeds. So I had one of the old Honda ones with the white box on the back.
I know.
And there was a scrap. Well, there still is. It's still there. There's a scrapyard roundling called Bacon's, and we'd go down there on our push bikes. And each time we go, one of us would come back with a moped, and they were never registered or taxed or insured or anything like that. And like I say, my friend Lee, he had the best one. Do you remember the ones they used to sell in the catalogues?
There was one that you pedalled to start it off.
Yeah, they used to sell them. They used to sell them, didn't they? They were called Tomos, I think they were.
I think Honda did them.
Sorry.
I thought Honda did them, didn't they?
Mate, no. I'm sure these were. This the one anyway. The one he had, I think, was called a Tomos, and we used to buy these for like 15, 20 quid from the scrapyard. Bring them home, and whatever was wrong with them, we'd figure it out and get it going. And we'd be bombing around the village at 14 years old on these mopeds, mate. No helmets, no nothing. And so mopeds, I've always buzzed off mopeds and had a, because they're easy. You just get on them and ring, off you go. But no, I could never get the hang of the gears on the motorbike, mate.
It always sounds like a flatulent wasp, though, mopeds. Like...
I love a moped, mate. If I lived in Italy, I'd have to have a Vespa, mate.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's got to be a Vespa.
Well, that's what Vespa means, doesn't it? In English.
Really?
Wasp.
Wasp. Oh.
Yeah, that's what Vespa is, mate. Vespa means wasp.
But I love transportation, but of personal transportation. I can't stand trains and buses and things. I'd rather walk than go by public transport. I hate it.
Mate, I'll use the bus sometimes to get into town and back. But I'm one of these people who I'll just chat to anyone anyway, so I'll always find someone to talk to on the bus. Sometimes you pick a weirdo and sometimes you pick a normal person. And that's probably what they think about me.
Round here, if you spoke to somebody on the bus, how dare you speak to me? Oh, nobody talks to each other in this area.
Right, everybody speaks in our village. It's lovely.
Now, Angela Dempsey says, I get my seeds from real seeds. They are not GMO, old veg and fruits that go back to the 1800s. I've heard of them.
Yeah, same here, Angela. I've heard of them as well. And I think one of my customers gets his from there as well, because he's very particular about where he gets his seeds from and what he grows. I've got a feeling his might come from real seeds.
Well, I've got some house leeks that I would say are possibly touching on 100 years old. Obviously, not the original ones, because my granddad grew them on his air raid, top roof of his air raid shelter, and he originally grew them in his garden before World War II. My mum got them when she got married, and I've sort of they've hand-me-downs, and they're still going strong. These house leeks, beautiful they are, and now they look like wheat grass, but they'll put up with anything. House leeks, easiest thing in the world to grow. They always survive. Stephen Trussell says, "Remember Percy Thrower?" Yes, I do.
Yes,
Percy Throw Up. When they watered the plants in BBC, and it went and they had microphones, and silly ass people put microphones in the electrics. It went.
It would do, wouldn't it? Yeah, putting water. He was definitely better than Alan Titmarsh.
Oh, bloody hell! Yes. The old days, isn't it? And I'll tell you who I used to like. He came up from your area. Bloke with a plaque. What was his name now? He used to have a plaque about 20 years ago. Bob Flowerdew. Never heard of Bob Flowerdew? He was good. He was. He come from North.
Was he on telly?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see, I haven't watched a lot of telly, mate, my whole life. Even though I can only say, really, it's been the last 8 years that I absolutely haven't. The Apprentice took me 3 years to kick The Apprentice, mate.
Really?
But once, we talked about this before. You had the same thing, I think. Mate, it was just fascinating. I mean, it makes you ashamed to be a human being sometimes, programs like that. But at the same time, it's compelling viewing, watching the worst of humanity brought out onto a TV screen. And like a dozen of them just fighting amongst themselves. Like I say, because whichever one of them loses, you're winning because you hate them all, don't you? So it's like you're just watching it and just thinking, these are the worst specimens. I don't care which one gets voted out because you're all awful.
There's always, yes, Sir Sugar. Yes, Sir Sugar. No, Sir Sugar.
Mate,
okay, Sir Sugar. Can I kiss your feet, Sir Sugar?
Oh, he's a twat, mate. Oh. And his computer was shit as well. Amstrads were rubbish.
Yes, I had one.
Yeah, I didn't. I had a Spectrum, mate. I had a classy 48K rubber key Spectrum.
Ooh. I remember buying, what is it, a 30 megabyte hard disk, and someone said, bloody hell, you want to take over the world with that? 30 megabytes is nothing nowadays, is it? 30 megabytes.
Yeah. Oh, mate, I remember, what was it? They were 48K, the Spectrums, the memory on them. So we weren't even talking. I remember getting my first Commodore Amiga, which was 512K memory, but you could get a half meg upgrade and take it up to a full megabyte. And I remember being so excited that I had a computer that had a whole megabyte of memory on it. You wouldn't do much with a megabyte now, would you?
You certainly wouldn't. I've actually got a Sinclair ZX81.
Beautiful.
It's shit.
Well, mate, it's just a calculator, really, isn't it? A ZX81.
Well, it was. Yes.
And then there was a chess game on there, I remember.
That's right. I played chess with it. Yeah.
Yeah. But there wasn't a lot else going on the ZX81, was there?
No, it's Clive Sinclair. And what you did, they didn't have quality control. So if you got a shit one, you just took it back to the shop. And I went about 3 or 4 times taking it back because it didn't work properly.
Mate, I didn't realise they were that notoriously that bad. Like I say, my 48K rubber key, and I mean, that was a revolution when it came out, mate. I mean, things like Horace Goes Skiing and Manic Miner, and you were blown away by it.
That's right, yeah. So I remember when the first CAD came in, computer-aided design.
Yes.
And what you did, you did the screen. You went away and had a cup of tea and come back. And the thing was going.
Mate, now it's like, because Chris, I'm going to tangent here, and I'm sorry, but just briefly, because you'll know what I'm talking about. Obviously, you're an architect, so you're aware of the CDA regulations, and you know about, they came in about 15, 16 years ago, where you've got like, obviously, if you're the client or if you're mate, I used to sell the courses and I didn't understand it. I used to work at the Construction Industry Training Board, mate, and we sold all the CDA courses when they came out. I went on training sessions for it. Could never get my head around it.
I can't.
No.
And by the way, I'm a technician. We always say that technicians never make mistakes. We make designed improvements.
That might not always be improved.
Because the thing is, what you do is you get a project, depending on the size of the project, and you get one architect, and you get about 20 technicians working on it. And they're the people that are actually designing it and putting it all together. And the architects are, I've done this, and the technicians have been all sorts of designing,
doing all the detail and working out, all the structures. And,
But quite honestly, the idea, I thought I'd be doing beautiful design works and all this. Everything's rush and tear, and it's hectic, really is. Now it says here, oh, this is nice. What is it? It says, like folks, this is great stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you. That's very kind.
We enjoy it. If nobody else does, we get kicked from it.
So. Hello, I'm into horticulture.
I'm pleased to hear it, Stephen. You should be. Everybody should be into horticulture, mate.
Yes.
I mean, look, what a nonsense that we send children to school and you can do 12 years in a government indoctrination camp and never learn. I mean, you might do a little bit of growing at junior school, mightn't you? You might, and a little bit of nature study, but you don't learn anything of any use, do you?
Well, I never did. I mean, I'll give you an example. By the way, this is That's Life, not That's
William.
Life.
William.
I'm doing my HNC and DAO and going on to do my diploma. Good for you, mate.
Spot on, William. Yeah.
Bob flowered you once. Sorry, Chris, carry on.
No, sorry. All I was going to say was, whilst I don't want to piss on William's chips, I think what's great about what William's doing, not so much the qualification, but the choice of subject and what he's going to learn in that time, if you know what I mean. I don't put much value on. I've seen a lot of qualified people working jobs that I've worked in that I've not been qualified for, and they have, and they don't always do the best job, mate, the qualified people, if you know what I mean.
I've found that. I've actually found that
in things like construction, like with dry lining, for example, the dry liners with the MVQs weren't the ones that did the best work.
No. Oh yes. Well, that's American architect. I can't think of his name at the moment because I've got a terrible memory for names. In the 1930s and 20s, he didn't have any qualifications at all. He came out the hard way. And the Architectural Association in America, they said they started to challenge him on it. And he said, okay, put me in a room and ask me any question you want. And he could have cleared the floor with them, and they backed off because they knew they couldn't beat him. He invented California screen blocks. He did, what's his name now? It's gone. Sorry, his brain's gone.
All right, mate.
But I'm very forgetful. Cop on, Eric. That's Hawaii 5-0, yes. Now, it says, best thing is to test your soil and know what you have, then work from there. Well, my soil is easy. It's slugs and shit. You need to know what you're dealing with, and the tests are easy. Well, the slugs will probably eat the tests in my garden. And
William's right with that, though, Chris. I mean, different soil. You get soil that's acidic, and some things will grow in it, and some. I mean, you know, not just your just like the acidity soil, but what your soil's made up. I mean, a lot of soil around here has got a lot of sand in it and a lot of clay. I'm lucky where I am, the soil's really good, but there are parts of the village where it's just clay, mate, and it is literally like the color of clay. The soil is rubbish. You can't do a lot with it. You have to put better topsoil down on top, which is what a lot of people have done around here. But yeah, William's right. Knowing your soil. I mean, this is again like, mate, we know I come into this 2.5 years ago and I blagged it. You know, I jumped from 10 years in social care to being a gardener with not really having any relevant experience. That I blagged it, and I've learned a lot, but I've still got a lot to learn, and soil is something that I'm slowly starting to come round to. But you don't need to know a lot to grow food. That's the important thing, is you don't need to be any kind of expert to chuck some seeds into a pot of soil and water them and give them a go. And I still remain committed to that. My philosophy is that just have a go, try things, find out what works, find out what doesn't work. You know, I'm 48 years old. I've never really settled at anything until I started working in social care. I've done a lot of jobs, mate. I've worked in factories, retail, restaurants, building sites, sales, all sorts. The point is that I'm making again is that I'm not scared to just try things and have a go. And I think life is so enriching when you try things that you haven't done before. And
I agree with you.
And I don't think there's anything better than getting your hands into the dirt and reconnecting with Mother Earth.
You're right. And also, everybody blags it when they start something. When I was let loose in architecture, you blag it because there's one thing getting lots of information into your brain. There's another thing applying it.
Yeah.
And applying it is something different. I mean, well, you look at it, it's like driving. Somebody can explain in theory how to drive. It's not until you get into the car itself and start driving, you realise it's completely different.
Yeah.
So that's it. And this is an interesting one. Rob Hollyoak. By the way, that architect was Franklin Lloyd Wright.
Right.
And if you look up Franklin Lloyd Wright, he did, I wouldn't say all his architecture was good, but some of it was okay. And my favourite, though, is Gaudi, because you look at Gaudi, you either love it or hate it. And he's the one in, absolutely, Barcelona. Dr. Wallach, this is, yes, Dr. Wallach, knowledge has helped me reverse my grey beard with colloidal silver. Yes.
Copper.
Yes.
Right.
Sorry, not colloidal silver, colloidal copper. I'm terribly sorry. Yes, you're right. Yeah. That's interesting. Because
there's a lot we don't know in there.
People don't realise this, but I used to be bald and now I've got a full head of
a full head of bald, yeah.
Right. Actually, we're coming to the end of the evening, and hang on, what's this? Leviticus shove it. SAS slugs and shit. A good band name.
Could be, couldn't it?
Yes. It says now it says here, Tinkle Tink, architecture came from religious buildings. Yes.
Possibly.
Yes. And hang on, this is interesting. Bob Hollyoak says tin nutrition will help hair regrow.
There you go. Copper and tin, Chris. That's what you need to be looking into.
Do you know, I used to love having long hair. It used to be down at my shoulders. And when I started to lose my hair, I mean, I'd look really weird if I had long hair now. Hairs, but I really don't like being bald because I used to like having long hair.
Yeah.
And, but
Say la vie, Chris.
Well, it's in my genes.
Mate.
Well, that's right. I changed from Levi's to Wranglers. That still didn't make any difference to my baldness.
No,
now, Barcelona Cathedral. That's right. That's Gaudi, Monsieur Gaudi. Yes.
Oh, your chap that you were talking about.
Oh, yeah. He's what you call an architect. A proper architect, he is. That was.
You don't get many of these days, mate. A lot of most of what is built nowadays is really uninspiring. And it buzzes me. I do not understand how we've gone from building the things we were building 150, 200 years ago to building the crap that we build now. How did that happen?
We could have a whole program on that because
let's
just start me off.
Yeah. Chris, are you familiar with the Tartaria theory?
I've heard of it, yes.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but it's interesting. Very interesting.
Well, I think that when you look at it, we reached our peak in 1914 because I love Art Nouveau. If you go to Belgium, you still see a lot of Art Nouveau around there as well. To me, it's natural. Art Nouveau it looks, to me, a building should look as if you put seeds in the ground and it's grown naturally, mixes. And the Chinese make sure that feng shui, that a building is the correct way round. Yes. And I got pissed off with architects saying, it's a statement. Well, so is a lump of dog poo. It's a statement, especially if you slide it. But to me, we've lost it. We've completely lost it with architecture. And they're quite brutal architecture. No,
I was just about to say brutalism was where we lost a lot of it, wasn't it? In the 60s and 70s and even the 50s, when they were just so keen to get things up as quickly. I mean, they were prefabricating flats on site, weren't they? They're actually building the sections on site and just taking them up 20 floors and I mean, there was a shortage of housing, wasn't there? That was the way they thought that there was the right way to tackle it. But again,
it was a national building disaster in the 1950s and 60s. Yeah. And when you look, there's a place like Thamesmead, which is on the side of the Thames. It's a concrete abortion, basically. And people were regularly throwing themselves off the top of the towers there because they got so depressed.
Like
Why?
the Red Row flats in Glasgow, Chris. You know about them? They've been demolished now, haven't they? Because they was, I think they were like 50, 55 stories high, weren't they? And people were just depressed.
Well, that's right. Actually, Chris, your background in the building industry, and of course mine, we could do as Aunt Sally has said. She says you really should do a show about modern architecture, Chris. I'd love to hear the opinion of someone in the trade. Well, I'm a bit like the Punch and Judy man at 80 Kids. You know, I don't like arguing because to me, I'll very quickly. It's really up to time now. I mean, I was on a contract once. I got thrown out because they was they got a model maker in to make a model of a building that was built in the 60s, and this was in the sort of 90s. And there was doing up London Wall. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to London Wall, but it's a 1960s balls up. There's walkways going nowhere. There's all these horrible flats, office buildings, and it's awful. And
the one that I've been to is the Barbican.
Oh yeah, that's a balls up as well. It's not that.
That's listed now as well, isn't it?
Well, I think it's listed under shit. It should be, but what happened is sometimes you act out a character and you shock yourself. I don't know what it was, but I can't remember fully. But I think I had another because I'm a contract bloke, freelance.
Yeah.
And you're a bit freelance fellas, a little bit like they called us cowboys, yeah, or subbies. I think I had another contract lined up, and it was a January day, a bit like today. It's a bit damn. It's not a sunny day, and I was sitting there, and they had this effeminate model maker, and if you got a packet of cornflakes, that would be a model of the building. It's just that was it. And there's this feminine model maker said, well, we can't put the light around there to get the beautiful Western. And I'm sitting there. I'm getting, I don't know what it was. So I just don't know why. I just get more and more pissed off. And you had them say, oh, yes, but the aesthetic, like the light's hot on this. And it came to my turn. Well, Chris, have you any thoughts on this? I said, yes, Blaster Bates with a lorry load of TNT would make a vast improvement. Get out!
Really? Well, they threw you out?
Yeah, he just threw it out. Because it's true, Blaster Bates with TNT would just blow the building up. Vast improvement.
But, a bit of a sense of humour failure there, Chris, then, obviously.
Oh, it was, yeah. And, yes, what are cornflakes? That's stupid.
Not particularly nice, mate. We don't indulge in any cereals in this house.
What buildings are the creepiest? Freemasonry stuff is creepy, I think. Well, I worked in an office once where there was only 3 of us that weren't Freemasons. I've actually had a Masonic handshake with someone tapped me wrist. I thought, it's a bloody funny handshake, that is. There's lots of architects are Freemasons. And the only way I got into one project was because the agent that got me in there was a Freemason.
Yeah, it happens a lot, mate.
I wasn't. I never would be.
That's what they do. I mean, my mum's second husband, my first stepdad, the guy that brought me up between 12 and 19, he was a Mason, and he was the worshipful master of 2 different lodges at one point, the one in Lynn and one in London called Old Bancroftians. And he used to say it to me all the time, mate. He used to say, Masons run the world, boy. Masons run the world.
They do.
He was spot on, mate. Yeah, because if you're a Mason, you're duty bound to give a job to another Mason over a non-Mason.
Well, I need some masonry done on my front garden wall. I was wondering whether to go down to a local lodge and say, excuse me, can you do some masonry, please, if it's free? Come along, I'll get the old Baron along.
My friend Bacon is a proper stonemason, mate. That's what he does. He's a stonemason, and a very good one as well. He's done a couple of bits for a couple of my customers before, but I don't think he's a Mason.
No.
Doesn't quite fit the criteria. He's a bit of a wanderer.
Well, if someone asked me to join up with a group of blokes to do some very strange things behind closed door, I'd run a bleeding mile. I don't know what to do with that. To me, it's creepy. It's horrible. Ugh, no.
Don't need any of that crap, do we?
No, don't need any of that, you know. Anyway, we better soon. We're well over time.
We're better. We're anyway, over, aren't we?
We are very much over, and thank you very much for joining us tonight, Chris. And we could do where are we? Oh, here he is. Thanks for joining us tonight, Chris, and join us next week, same time, same place, and remember, whatever happens, have a bloody good laugh, and good night.
Cheers all.